Members, the members.
Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the town of Pelham for Tuesday, September 5th, 2017, to order. We will begin by the singing of the national anthem, led by Councillor Papp. I would ask all who are able to rise.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patron of, in all thy sons' command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Councillor Papp. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll now move to the adoption of the agenda. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved that the agenda for the September 5th, 2017 regular meeting of council be adopted. And I understand that that's Councillor Durley and Councillor Ribbiak are suggesting, because there's a large contingent of folks here from the Hurricane Road area, that the report from the Committee of the Whole, which is 4.5.1, be added to the council agenda at item 11.2.3. Questions or comments regarding that amendment? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries on the amendment. Are there any other items that council would like to add or change on the agenda? So I'm going to call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Next is the disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do any members of council have any conflicts of interest that they need to disclose?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can that be noted that there are no conflicts of interest? Now we move to presentations. We have a presentation this evening given by our CAO and Mr. Shedden, our legal counsel. Thank you, Mr. CAO.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present to you tonight. This presentation is entitled Key Facts, and it is a response to Rainier Hummel's presentation to Regional Council and subsequent news coverage and an interview that was printed in the Voice newspaper. Just by way of background, Mr. Hummel made a presentation to Regional Council in which he made a number of very disturbing allegations with regards to the town and regards to finances, particularly debenturing and the community center. And a lot of that was reiterated in an interview that was done with The Voice. So Council has asked me to go through both of those instances and report back to Council with a response to Mr. Hummel's comments, which is why I'm here this evening. I'll be doing the majority of the talking. However, Mr. Shedden is here because Mr. Shedden and I both have worked very closely on this file, and Mr. Shedden can provide Council with some information as well as answer questions. So again, this is a presentation that I've tried to focus specifically on the key facts of what was said and what the actual reality is. And again, it is in response to allegations, hearsay, and a political tit-for-tat leveled by Mr. Hummel during a presentation to Regional Council, and again, the article in the paper. I've broken the presentation out into two parts because there was two separate interviews, if you will. The first is the response to the presentation that was made directly to Regional Council, so I've entitled that Part 1. Part 2 deals with the July 5th, 2017 article and the interview that was given to The Voice by Mr. Hummel. So Part 1, starting with the response to the Hummel presentation at Regional Council. What I'm going to do is just basically go through the entire presentation, and every time that there was a claim made, I've tried to capture that claim verbatim, even though it was a video presentation, and then I provided what I call the key facts in response to that allegation. So when Mr. Hummel started his presentation, he introduced himself and his background, but he neglected to mention that he is also a political appointee on the MPCA committee responsible for asset management, which is land sale, acquisition, land, and that is a committee that is chaired by the regional councillor Bart Maves. Mr. Hummel also had active appeals with the Ontario Municipal Board against the town regarding Mr. Hummel's refusal to follow adopted town planning policies in East Fonthill. Mr. Hummel then goes on to claim he was one of the largest property owners in East Fonthill. The fact is that Mr. Hummel is the second smallest East Fonthill developer out of a total of 7. He owns less than 20 acres out of the 450 acres that make up East Fonthill. Since his presentation to Regional Council, he has sold 3.4 acres of that 20, which I will stress is unserviced East Fonthill land, for a price of $1.925 million, or $566,176 per acre. And this is important because Mr. Hummel makes a number of claims with regards to assessments that just don't hold up. The claim, the next claim, that somehow the town had a potentially illegal credit scheme, questionable land purchased, unfunded plan for the community centre, and Pelham may have misrepresented the $36 million debenture to the Niagara region. The fact is that Mr. Hummel has made a number of unsubstantiated claims, but has produced zero proof to back up his allegations. Every unsubstantiated allegation is preferenced by the words such as may, questionable, potentially. There's absolutely no evidence to support what his claims are. The claim, conflicting descriptions of the municipal credit scheme. We've only ever had one description, and so the fact is the town has conducted its business in an open and transparent manner. It has posted all materials on its website, including reports, minutes, agreements, etc. The town has gone further and released a 300-page plus report countering many of these claims, which were originally part of the infamous Barrick motion at Regional Council. The town then went the extra step and held an evening, what we termed an evening with the experts, which was an open house to allow the public to ask any and all questions regarding the East Fonthill and the community centre projects. And there was a number of experts, including representatives from Watson and Associates, our legal counsel was there, and a number of other experts. The claim, Mr. Hummel claimed that there was questionable financial, and the word financial is in brackets because it wasn't entirely clear, but there is an assumption that it was referring to questionable financial statements of buying the credits back. And just to be clear, the fact is that there was no financial disclosure on the 2015 financial statements for the parkland dedication and the excess parkland dedication. A lot of people said, well, it's not on your financial statements, therefore you're hiding something. It's important to note that the reason why is that the agreement states Fonthill Gardens will enter into an agreement. The town will determine. Those are all future activities that the parties agreed to. Therefore, they are not liabilities to be closed at the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2015. So it may sound somewhat technical. It's important to note that the reason why there isn't anything on the 2015 financial statements is because those activities had yet to happen. Therefore, you can't report something that hasn't happened yet. The claim, the town only had $500,000 cash and could not purchase the DC credits without using money borrowed exclusively for the community center. This claim is false. Mr. Hummel is citing the 2015 financial statements. The town has not used the debenture for anything but the community center. All funds have been borrowed and monitored and are reported to the province of Ontario. This is Infrastructure Ontario borrowing. We are accountable to the province. All borrowed funds for the community center are kept in a separate account and transferred only when needed to pay invoices for the project. So this is a completely self-contained, for lack of a better word, project. So the money, the borrowing has been done, the borrowing is in place, and as the bills come in, we pay the bills with the money that we borrowed. It's as simple as that, and all of that is reported up to the province, who is monitoring this. And everything's kept in a very organized manner to show the expenses because we are, again, responsible for reporting that. So the next claim that was made was that there's no public indication when the municipal credits were used. This, again, is false. The bylaw is there before you. It was bylaw 3650, 2015, and it was approved on September 8th, 2015. Anyone can go see our minutes and verify that fact. And to be sure, the resolution read, be it resolved that Council receives the issue summary report over Parkland dedication, East Fonthill agreement, and that Council approved the agreement as presented. There was nothing secret done. Everything is documented, and it has been and will continue to be accessible on our website. The next allegation is the claim that no public access to journal entries of Parkland Reserve to DC Reserve. So somehow that the public cannot see the journal entry that we made with regards to this transaction. And in fact, this is, I believe, one of the few true statements that was made. The transaction was not charged to the DC Reserve account. Therefore, no such journal entry exists. So we can't, again, put an entry on for a transaction that doesn't exist. So it's as simple as that. And again, it is simply not true. Sorry, the allegation, the way you put forward, was not true. Claim in 2014, 2015, and 2016 reports are all unavailable to the public on the Pelham website. Again, this is false. All reports, audited financial statements, they're all on our website and are posted when they're accepted by Council. So once the financial statements have been approved by Council, they're immediately posted on our website. And this is a municipal act requirement of all municipalities in the province, so why we suggest that somehow we have not complied with that legislation and simply have not put up our financial statements again, this is a completely false statement. The next claim was the development charges were printed in the basement. This claim is false. The agreement that was signed was presented by Sullivan Mahoney, which is a law firm in St. Catharines. It was reviewed and recommended to Council by Daniel and Partners, which is the law firm representing the town, and specifically the lawyer that is standing beside me tonight, Mr. Shedden. Mr. Hummel mischaracterizes the credits in the Parkland dedication agreement as development charge credits, and this is again a mischaracterization that has led to confusion. The next claim was the town overpaid for the land it required for a park as outlined in the East Fonthill secondary plan. This is a point I'll come back to again, but the fact is this is false. The Parkland dedication formula was used to determine the future value of the land at the point of building permit issuance, assuming that it would reflect the highest and best use of the land. The appraisal was done in July 2017, and it is our expectation that comparable properties would have yielded a higher per lot, per front foot value. And currently we have confirmed that developers have signed offers at $3,500 a front foot. So I believe there was 148 properties in the area. If you calculate the front footage on those, assuming that they're ready to build on and that the developer is pulling permit, that is how that land was valuated. That is the town's policy. We expect developers to pay us at that point, and in turn, if we are acquiring land, we need to recognize that and follow the same rules. And that is why the town purchased the property at its value or at its anticipated value. If we had waited to do the appraisal until now, we are seeing land prices that are going up, and in fact, we would be paying more money for the land than we already have. So it was in our best interest to deal with that parkland issue up front. Claim, based on forecasted growth, Pelham has a $8.7 million funding gap in expected development charges. Again, this is false. This claim questions the credibility of the Watson and Associates report, and they draft 80% of the municipal DC bylaws in the province. They were the ones who developed the numbers, and they presented this financial tool to council. And again, I'm not going to go into the mechanics of this report. However, it is available on our website at Watson & Associates Development Charge Funding in the Pelham Community Center, dated April 25th, 2016. This lays out the way that the development charges would work, and it clearly gives a recommendation to council on how the development charges could be used to finance part of the community center. The next claim was the town claimed to be borrowing for a community center but used the money to buy back DC credits from Fonthill Gardens. This again is false. Borrowing for the community center and the purchase of the land for a park are two completely different issues that are being tied together. So they're two things that happened at around the same time that are completely unrelated. However, they've been tied together to create a story that just simply does not exist. The Infrastructure Ontario, again, oversees the debenture, and we are accountable to the province of Ontario. And with that, we also signed the agreement and took on the borrowing with the acknowledgement that we would comply with the strict provincial reporting rules, which we do on a monthly basis. And again, that is scrutinized by our own oversight committee that council has established in-house. The next claim is, why would the town pay so much for land in the middle of nowhere? Something doesn't smell right. Well, the fact is this land was purchased for a higher price than that of a single lot on the market, again, because the town had to evaluate or appraise the land, assuming that each buildable lot was ready for a building permit. This is a very important point to understanding why the appraisal was higher than if you just went out and appraised your own house. Is because it was a valuation that was assuming something in the future. Second of all, Summersides is not in the middle of nowhere. It is in fact integral to the functioning of the entire East Fonthill Road network. And other property sales are verifying this future valuation, such as Mr. Hummel's own recent sale of his 3.4 acres of unserviced land at a cost of $1.925 million or $566,176 per acre. The next claim, the town agreed to purchase land from a developer that he did not own. This claim is false. The town agreed to purchase the land from Fonthill Gardens, who is the registered owner of the property. The next claim was that you need to build 12,000 houses in the town of Pelham, which is equivalent to the city of Welland. To generate the development charges, you need to pay for the community center. This, in fact, is not only untrue, this is a ridiculous claim. The amount the town expects to collect for this is clearly outlined in the Watson & Associates report to council dated April 25th, 2016. I'm not going to go through it all again, but again, that report is on our website. It is accessible for anyone to take a look at. And the other thing is important to note that the fact is development charges do not stay static. That is, the development charges that were assessed this year or last year or the year before do not stay static. They are constantly moving. In fact, they rise as the level of service increases. And that is why we have development charges and why they're reviewed on a consistent basis to make sure that that is being captured. The next claim, what the town has done is like a father co-signing for a son's school loan. The son uses the money to pay off bad gambling debt and then has to come up with the money for school. The whole family was put into jeopardy by the son's actions. This was Mr. Hummel's analogy claim. The fact is, this is complete nonsense, and to suggest the town has borrowed money for the community center and paid other debt obligations is false. Even if the town borrowed the entire amount needed to build the community center, it is still well below our debt limit. If for some reason the town was to default on the entire loan and the region had to cover the debt, it would not make the slightest difference to the region's credit rating. And as been stated before, this was validated in our 300-page plus report where we had Standard & Poor's themselves indicate that this, in fact, was a valid statement. I'll move to part two now of my presentation. This is response to the article that was entitled East Fonthill Process Corrupted, again, July 5th, 2017. And then there was a conversation, as I believe it was referred to in the voice that accompanied the article. First of all, the claim that was made by Mr. Hummel, the town purchased land in 2014 from the Allen Group that the company did not own at the time, for more money than any piece of property that has ever been sold for in the Niagara region. It looks like nothing more than a backdoor way of bonusing a developer. The fact is, this again is complete nonsense. The town purchased land from the registered owner, Fonthill Gardens, at a price that was determined by an independent appraisal, and it was peer reviewed. The land was valued at a price of what it would be worth, assuming that it was built at permit stage. Again, I reiterate, this is our policy. We collect the parkland owed by developers at the time in which they're ready to pull their building permit. That gives us the highest possible valuation on the land so that we can recover the most amount possible under the Act to be able to have the dollars to build parks and community amenities. Second, the appraisal established the value for the highest and best use of residential development, period. That's all it was. The valuation was done in accordance with the Planning Act. And by doing the appraisal and setting the price in 2015 dollars, the town has actually saved money on the purchase of additional parkland by entering into the agreement with Fonthill Gardens. That is to say, if we were to try and acquire the land today or tomorrow or next year, land does not get cheaper, it gets more expensive. So we're also already seeing the sales in that area that are validating our analysis. Excuse me. The next claim, the town created development charge credits to trade for land, which is potentially illegal and like printing money in the basement. The fact is, this is false. To be true, it would involve the collusion of municipal staff, mayor and council, Watson's and Associate, Daniel and Partners, Fonthill Gardens, Sullivan Mahoney, all of these individuals and organizations who helped draft and present the agreement to the town. Each of these groups have their own checks and balances independent from each other and from the town, which would necessitate reporting if any suggested creation of development charges was attempted. So that's an easy way to say, in order for this claim to be true, it would have evolved a fairly significant conspiracy from a number of completely unrelated and independent individuals or organizations. The credits in the Parkland Dedication Agreement are not simply development charge credits, as has been claimed. The agreement allows Fonthill Gardens to use the credits to pay for fees payable to the town in relation to the development, including application fees, parkland dedication fees, and development charges. The town entered into the agreement as it was their jurisdiction to do so under Section 34 of the Development Charges Act. The next claim, and this one is specific to the conversation a whistleblower blows July 5th, 2017. Again, the claim is, how can you build a multi-billion-dollar road that you don't need to? Summersides Boulevard is a train wreck. No one in their right mind would build something like that. The fact is, Summersides is a total of 0.82 kilometers. That's 0.82 kilometers in total length. That is from Rice Road through to Station Street. The section of the road that runs from Rice Road to Wellspring Way, the first piece, is actually cost shared between the two landowners, those being River Realty and the town of Pelham. The section of road that runs from Wellspring to Station Street is intended to connect the historic downtown with East Fonthill to avoid the creation of two separate downtowns in the same urban area. This road connection was demanded by the public and the Pelham Business Association, who made it clear that by allowing two unconnected urban developments to occur would be detrimental to the health of the business community that was already established in our historic downtown. Council committed to this as part of the overall development. So to suggest that you are building a road in the middle of nowhere for no particular reason is false. It was actually a commitment that council made to the public well before this development started to become a reality. The next claim, the road, again, Summersides, will have to be completely torn up to connect to it. It is only being built because of a political promise made by the mayor. I don't believe people are prepared to pay $2.5 million for something that doesn't need to be bought or doesn't need to be paid for. The fact is, Summersides Road was established as part of the East Fonthill secondary plan when the plan was first developed years ago. So this road was a part of the planning. It has been no secret, and it has been well established in the plan and approved by council. The town proactively placed a 1-foot reserve along each side of Summersides so that when any developer connects to it, so when they connect to the infrastructure under the road, namely the water and sewer, they must pay the town the cost that is required to build that section of road. By doing this, the town will recover 100% of its investment. So to suggest this is money out of pocket that will never be seen again is false. And also the fact is that the town will be recovering 100% of its investment as development occurs. The only way that development, or the practical way of development occurring, is for the town to open up the land by doing things such as building roads, which is what we have been doing in East Fawn Hill. The next fact is that any service connections required on Summerside will be the same as any other service connection. So we have developments all over the country, if you will, that are being developed beside established roads. You don't tear out the established road to build the development, you simply tie into the existing infrastructure. As is the case in any development, any damages to the road as a result of this routine procedure would be the responsibility of the developer to pay for, and to suggest otherwise is nonsense. So to suggest that a developer needs to tear up the road and the town is left to pay for it is simply not true. This road construction at the outset of the project was a fulfillment to the commitment made by council to the public. The next claim in the conversation was the CIO told Mr. Hummel during an unrelated meeting that the town had special ways of seeking legal counsel. Mr. Hummel stated that he made a few inquiries and apparently the town used a different lawyer other than Callum Shedden from Daniel and Partners for the creation of the development charges agreement. Is that true, Mr. Shedden?
That's not true.
This is a complete fabrication. At no time during the meeting with Mr. Hummel, which pertained to Mr. Hummel's refusal to comply with the town's secondary plan in East Fawn Hill, did the CAO have such a conversation? And the CAO is me. I did not have that conversation. This fact has been confirmed by all other meeting participants. The agreement that was presented to the town by Sullivan Mahoney was reviewed and recommended to council and, by staff, including myself, and legal counsel, again, Mr. Shedden, who is here this evening. The town has not used any other legal counsel other than what has been provided by Daniel and Partners. So to suggest that we used a separate lawyer to do something that was suggested to be untoward is completely false. Claim, if you talk to any builder developer, they'll give you the same answer. You don't rock the boat because all of a sudden your project will be stalled or your files will get lost. This is complete nonsense, and it is a direct attack on the professional reputations of the planning staff, the development staff of the municipality. The town prides itself on providing the best customer service in the region, and it is a fact which we report monthly to council. And by that is particularly the customer service numbers that both the planning director and the public works director include in their monthly reports. The next claim, this is what has happened to me. I rocked the boat and now my planning application has stalled. The fact is, this is nonsense. Planning staff worked diligently to respond to requested changes to Mr. Hummel's development plans and provided recommendations to council in a timely manner. In August 2016, staff received a revised subdivision and plan, and in September 2016 provided a report to council with recommendations. Council did not support the staff recommendation and directed staff to negotiate with Mr. Hummel. In response, Mr. Hummel withdrew his lands from the development application and subsequently changed his mind and asked that the lands be included in that subdivision. Staff then prepared a final report with the recommendation in November 2016. Mr. Hummel's appealed council's decision in December 2016, and a board hearing was convened on June 15th, 2017. The applications were not stalled, they were being processed expeditiously. Council did not support Mr. Hummel's proposal because it undermined the design and desired planning outcomes for the East Fawn Hill community. Mr. Hummel appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board. Claim, it has taken 12 years to do what every other municipality can do in 2. This is because of interference by the mayor. If somebody breaks the tip of their pencil, they sit there and wait for the mayor to come in. The fact is, this is false. Planning staff operate with the highest ethics and standards under the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, the Development Charges Act, and the professional designations. The mayor cannot and does not interfere with any planning application process. Only council can make these decisions on behalf of the municipality. The development process for the East Fawn Hill lands has taken years to complete. It encompasses the inclusion of land in the urban boundary, an official plan, a secondary plan, a detailed site master plan, development agreements, site plan approvals, building permits, etc. To suggest that a municipality can accomplish this in 2 years is ridiculous. The town underwent significant public consultation during this process and worked directly with residents and businesses to achieve a plan that would support and enhance our historic downtown. The town also had to respond to new and changing provincial legislation during this period, which affected the ability for them to proceed on the provincially mandated plans. And finally, the fact is that East Fonthill development is already an award-winning development. The next claim, Mr. Hummel and the Director of Planning have had a great relationship and come up with great solutions together. And the fact is, although the Director has worked with Mr. Hummel in the past, he threatened to sue the Director personally once he was informed that Council did not approve of his plan. The next claim, a staff person told Mr. Hummel that the Mayor sent an email to them not to do it this way, that's not what he wants, change it. It is further implied that the staff person was pressured into changing her report and then left the town as a result. The fact is, this is false. At no time was any staff person, past or present, pressured by the Mayor to change any report or professional opinion. A public meeting for Saffron was held on July 11th, 2016, at which Mr. Hummel's planning representative advised that the application may be amended to provide street townhouses rather than block townhouses, which would front onto Port Robinson Road. Town Planning Recommendation Report to Council dated October 3rd, 2016 recommended front lane townhouses on Port Robinson Road, which Council did not accept. Julie Hanna, who was the planner at the time, left the employ of the town of Pelham to take a position of greater responsibility with the city of Thorold. And on behalf of all staff, we congratulate her and we are thrilled with her advancement and her new position. The next claim is the town bonused Fonthill Gardens by overpaying for the land that was acquired by the town for a public park. The fact is, this appraisal was used to establish the value for Fonthill Gardens lands for the purposes of establishing a parkland dedication value. The land was appraised for this purpose and peer-reviewed by an independent professional appraiser. Both appraisals were reviewed by senior staff, legal counsel, and recommended to council. If the appraisal was done in July 2017, it is the expectation that the comparable properties would have yielded a higher per lot, per front foot values. The River Realty development, which has already been sold out completely by the developer to builders, is an excellent example of this. By doing an appraisal and setting the price in $2015, the town has actually saved money on the purchase of additional parkland by entering into the agreement with Fonthill Gardens. The next claim, there is a connection between the parkland that was purchased by the town and the borrowing for the community center, and that the town lied to regional council when borrowing for the community center. The fact is, to suggest a connection is perpetuating a myth that the town has discredited repeatedly. There is no connection between the two matters, period. The town is following a plan that was presented and approved by regional council and Infrastructure Ontario. Despite being done at the same time, there is no connection between these two projects. Finally, in conclusion, the town of Pelham views the actions and statements of Mr. Hummel to be intentionally designed to question the credibility of the town of Pelham by making extraordinary claims of potentially illegal activities and schemes while providing zero evidence of such activities. The town prides itself on operating in an open and transparent manner, as it has done through this entire process. All agreements, meeting minutes, motions, reports, and bylaws have been made public. In response to the Barrick motion, the town hosted an evening with the experts where residents could ask questions related to East Fonthill, which complemented the 300-plus page report the town presented to the public and to regional council. And that, Mr. Mayor, is the conclusion of my findings.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. Do members of council have any questions for the CAO and or for Mr. Shedden? Councillor Rybak?
Just a quick comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor. It may be useful if you're going to print this to indicate the section in the Planning Act that refers to how to evaluate the parkland dedication. I know that I had questions about this thing that were completely answered when I read the black and white law as to how to go about doing it. So connecting that might, as a footnote, might help a lot.
I can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So, Mr. Shedden, just to that, so the Planning Act dictates how this type of land should be purchased. I think that's one of the biggest issues that people have questioned about. Mr. Shedden?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Planning Act provides options for how a municipal council can value parkland dedication land. As you're aware, when a developer proposes a subdivision, there's a 5% of the land can be taken by the town for parkland, or the town can take cash in lieu of the 5%. And in some instances, there's additional land required, and there has to be consistency. So the town isn't obliged to value it at the day before building permit. That's an option. The town could value it earlier, but the town has chosen to, and through its policy, has implemented a process where it values it at the day before building permit. And the reason that you do that is you achieve the highest possible value for the cash in lieu that you get from the developer. By the same token, if you need extra land, you pay more. But it's a fair system, and the Planning Act sets out the policies that you have to follow to implement that system, and that's what the town has done. So there's no mystery here. The town has followed the law.
Others? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Firstly, Mr. CAO, thank you for the very comprehensive response to Mr. Hummel's unprecedented statements. My question is through to you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Shedden. Given that this presentation seems to be an extension of the Barrick motion and the same politically motivated rhetoric that is designed to attack the town of Pelham, all of this stuff, how does it fall within the spheres of jurisdiction? You know, we have our role, they have their role. Can you explain that for us?
I wish I could. The short answer is the Barrick motion and the region hearing from Mr. Hummel as a deputation doesn't fall within the region's jurisdiction one bit. The Municipal Act sets out clear spheres of jurisdiction between the regional government, which is the upper tier municipality, and the lower tier municipalities, of which Pelham is one. They're dealing with something on which they don't have jurisdiction, and I don't understand why they've taken this on and why it's been dragged out so long in terms of what the Municipal Act calls for in terms of regional jurisdiction. It doesn't make sense to me from a Municipal Act point of view. Why they're doing it, I think you'd have to ask Mr. Barrick.
Thank you. Councillor? Or other councillors? Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a question, but a comment that the evening with the experts not only allowed the public to ask any and all questions, but it offered and gave explicit, true answers to every one of those questions. So at the end of that evening, there should have been absolutely no question in anybody's mind that everything was done properly, and this presentation today follows along the same lines. The facts are there, and people should look at the facts and not rumors that are floating about. And just a comment that everything has been open and transparent, and we're certainly proud of that fact.
Thank you very much. Councillor? Any others? So in terms of, you know, you've said this to us or suggested this to us. I'm going to turn to colleagues. One of the recommendations that did come forward in the evening with the experts was that perhaps we hold another meeting. The time frame was sort of September, October, and maybe this is something that we could also inform the community about in that same way. So I know Councillor Kersey's been working on something. I'm going to turn over to you, Councillor Kersey, if that's
Thank you,
okay.
Mr. Mayor.
We'll keep the discussion going.
This whole business has been really disturbing, and the amount of energy and money that's been spent by our community and by the region is outrageous in terms of the back and forth, and could have been better spent to pursue positive things. Mm-hmm. But in light of your presentation, Mr. CAO, I'd like to bring forward this motion that the Council of the Town of Pelham receive, support, and endorse the report as presented, and that staff post this report on our website, that it be published in the public local newspapers, and that staff be directed to arrange a public information meeting to address this matter, and such other matters as the municipality or the constituents may put forward, and that this report be forwarded to regional council, and further that the Town of Pelham Council and senior staff categorically deny all allegations made in the Barrick motion and the Hummel presentation. That the Town of Pelham Council and staff will no longer participate in the illegitimate review of the Town of Pelham finances by regional council and its committees. That the Town of Pelham will not provide any further information to the region regarding these matters. That the Town of Pelham demands that the processes now in play be it ended immediately, and that staff be directed to arrange that our solicitor, Mr. Shedden, appear before the audit committee to present this particular position. Mr. Mayor, that is my motion. I do not have a
Thank you.
seconder at
Let's
this
see if
point.
we have a seconder for the motion. Councillor Papp?
Through you, Councillor Kersey, I would be happy to, but I want to make some friendly amendments. References to illegitimate and that, we don't need to go that route. I think it's been pretty clear with what has been described here, and you've heard me say this time and time again, as someone who spent most of my career. I agree, Mr. Shedden, the region has no jurisdiction. This should have never been brought to the floor of regional council. And in fact, if there was that kind of issue dealing with particularly Mr. Hummel's whole situation, that should have been brought here. I think we need to put this behind us, but make the message clear that in the future, we are responsible for our own, legally responsible, legislatively responsible for what we undertake at a local tier level. If the region thinks that they have jurisdiction, the answer is no. So I just want to make sure that it's clear and that my colleagues and our colleagues and other municipalities hear the same message. And I would suggest that they be sent the same type of, that they be circulated as well. Because this is very, very, very destructive. This is not meant to build upon community. It's not meant to build upon the partnerships, the collaborations that we've talked about throughout our whole region, and especially after what we've been dealing with in the past few years and building a strong Pelham and helping many other communities. I think this is just, as I said way back, I could say just the wrong direction to take, and we should focus on what we need to build on, at least get the understanding that this encroachment has to stop. And in the meantime, we will continue on with carrying on with our business and accomplish what we need to do. So if I can, Councillor, I just want to make sure that we keep it in that vein. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Papp, you suggested another circulation. Sorry, we're trying to look at the motion here on the.
Well, I'm dealing
Third
just with the
screen.
wording, just to
You said
not
you wanted to
soften it,
circulate
just
it
keep
somewhat.
But I want it circulated to all the other 11 municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
But they need to hear this as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor
Mr. Mayor, could I put forward a friendly, in the
Yep.
vein that this Councillor Papp has put forward? In Clause 2, that the Town of Pelham Council and staff will no longer participate in this process of review of the Town of Pelham finances by regional council and its committees as it lies outside their spheres of jurisdiction. That removes the illegitimate
Yeah.
phrase and comments on the fact that it's outside their sphere of jurisdiction. Yep. I don't know, are you happy with that?
I'm very-
can you
I'm
say it
very
again?
happy.
Sorry, the clerk was trying
Sorry.
to.
Sorry, Madam Clerk. That the Town of Pelham Council and staff will no longer participate in this process of review of the Town of Pelham finances by regional council and its committees as it lies outside their sphere of jurisdiction.
Okay. Councillor Papp, you're okay with that?
I'm good with it. I'd take it further. You have no business looking at our finances or any of our operations. We're incorporated. That's our business. I would take it beyond finance. You can't just comment on recreation, whatever. We do what we have to do, and we're required to do that. So
I'll say,
I'm meaning to be forceful on it, but you have no business in our business.
So why don't we change finances to affairs?
So all local, lower tier municipal affairs.
So we're just trying to, Liza, so it's participate in the process of review of the town of Pelham finances.
Strike that
Change it to affairs.
Okay,
to our affairs.
two councilors, sorry. We're just trying to get the motion, and then we'll
Sorry,
open
I
it up
didn't
to
mean
all
to.
council. Okay,
Yeah,
you're good with that? Okay, I had Councilor Ribbiak and then Councilor Durley. Councilor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm generally supportive and probably as enthusiastically supportive of the sentiment behind that as my colleagues are. I want to be sure that we're not providing the region with a back door to not consider our issues when in fact, when it occurs to be their business to do. So to avoid unintended consequences, I don't know whether that needs to kind of look at that and study it a little bit. I understand the intent of it, and I support the intent of it. I just worry that somebody will say, yeah, we should have done that for you, but you know what, you told us to bug out, so we didn't. That I'd also like to avoid.
Okay, I don't know which portion of the motion would be that way. The clerk's trying to get the motion up on the screen.
That would
I'm
be
going to turn to Councilor Durley. Councilor Durley.
I echo the comments of my colleague. The word affairs sort of hits me kind of wrong, because there are some things we need to partner with other municipalities as well as with the region. And it could lead to, just as Councilor Ribbiak said, that we're not going to help you because you told us you don't want the help, and sometimes we're going to need that. So, again, the wording, we really have to wordsmith that properly. The word affairs, I don't like. Okay,
So it is-
something that's outside of their jurisdiction, that's a qualifying, but is it affairs outside the jurisdiction or financial affairs outside the jurisdiction? This is wordsmithing that needs to be, I think, hammered out.
Okay. Proposed solution?
Leave it at the financial.
Financial?
Jurisdiction
Okay.
for the time being. But you're right, because there are things that we are mandated as well to deal directly with them on planning issues and
there.
that. So,
Affairs, yeah.
okay, I agree.
Let's say financial affairs. Do you want financial affairs?
Financial matters.
Financial matters?
Yeah.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you read that out and just make sure we get it right?
The entire motion?
Yes.
To you, Mr. Mayor, on a motion by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Pat, be it resolved that Council receive, endorse, and support the Town of Pelham response to allegations as presented, and further that staff be directed to post this presentation on the town's website, publish it to the local newspapers, arrange a public meeting to address this matter, and that the report be forwarded, a copy of the report be forwarded to the regional chair, regional council, and the regional clerk. Couple of typos, sorry everybody. And that the Town of Pelham Council and senior staff categorically deny all allegations made in the Barrick motion and at the Hummel presentation. And that the Town of Pelham Council and staff will no longer participate in the process of review of the Town of Pelham financial matters by regional council and its committees, as it lies outside their sphere of jurisdiction. And that the Town of Pelham will not provide any further information to the region regarding these matters. And that the Town of Pelham demands that the processes now in play be ended immediately, and that staff be directed to arrange that our solicitor, Callum Shedden, appear before the audit committee meeting scheduled for September 12th, 2017 to present this position. And up here, we were also, I'm sorry, to add, and local municipalities.
That's the other, yep. That works.
And I think the date is the 18th of September.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, further discussion, Councilor Ribbiak?
Inasmuch as we have, fortunately, the presence of our council, I wonder whether you might have an opinion with regard to that, inasmuch as he's here anyway and can afford us
Okay.
perhaps even a quick and dirty decision.
Mr. Shedden, are you able to?
No pressure. In terms of the language of outside of their sphere's jurisdiction, I think that's appropriate language.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Nope.
I think some councillors are reading it. Any further debate? Council, are you ready for calling the question?
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to call the question on the motion as presented now on the screen, with typos perhaps. Kudos to the clerk for putting it all together. She got them all, so sorry. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. Thank you, Councillor Kersey and Pap, for the motion, and all council colleagues, and hopefully we'll put an end to this process. Thank you. People have been very patient, and some of you were here for other issues, but we certainly appreciate your patience. We do have some delegations, two of them in particular. The first is by Nancy Elkin from the Alzheimer's Society Foundation, and she's going to tell us about the Alzheimer's Society coffee break.
Yeah. I'm only here to talk about coffee, so that's
Perfect.
nice and easy.
It's a good change of gears, so thank you.
Mayor Augustine, members of council, town staff, and members of the public, my name is Nancy Elkin, and I'm a board member of the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Foundation. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about our annual coffee break, which is now in its 22nd year. The coffee break was originally inspired by the Niagara region chapter of the Alzheimer's Society, and it has now become the longest-standing national annual fundraiser event for Alzheimer's societies across Canada. Thousands of coffee breaks are held each year, and since its inception has raised more than $20 million. National Coffee Break Day is Thursday, September 21st, which this year coincides with World Alzheimer's Day. More than 10,000 coffee breaks are expected to take place across the country on that day. In the Niagara region, our campaign will kick off in Niagara-on-the-Lake that day with an event hosted by this year's honorary chair, the Honourable Rob Nicholson, MP for Niagara Falls. Dementia doesn't discriminate. It can affect anyone regardless of background, education, lifestyle, or status. Dementia is a health condition with important social implications that impact our communities. There is often a lack of awareness and understanding of dementia, resulting in stigmatization and barriers to diagnosis and care. It's estimated that 565,000 Canadians are currently living with a dementia, and worrying is that in less than 15 years, that number will reach nearly 1 million individuals in Canada. Alzheimer's disease, already the 7th leading cause of death in Canada, will only continue to grow as a public health concern. The annual cost to care for those with dementia is currently estimated at $10.4 billion. Mr. Nicholson proposed a private member's bill to establish a national dementia strategy as a solution to tackling the impact of dementia. We are pleased to say his leadership and support has resulted in Bill C-233 becoming law on June 22nd. This private member's bill creates a Canadian Alzheimer's disease and dementia partnership, bringing together researchers, clinicians, healthcare providers, and private industry to work alongside Canadians living with dementia to develop and implement a national strategy. The overall impact of a national dementia strategy for Canada will be better local management of dementia, resulting in improved quality of life and care. In the Niagara region, there are close to 10,000 people experiencing a progressive dementia, and the number of cases continues to grow. Last year, we saw almost 2,000 new referrals to our society, and at any given time, we have 750 families receiving service in our family support and intensive case programs. More impressively, we provided education to almost 11,000 participants from the general public and healthcare field. A recognized leader in the field of dementia care, the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara mission is to advocate for people with dementia and their care partners, and to provide access to a diverse range of appropriate resources and supports throughout their difficult journey that will assist them in remaining independent in their own homes and communities longer. We offer people living with dementia a welcoming place where they can access information and support, as well as connect with others who share a similar experience. By accessing education, personalized in-home support services, and wellness programs, families can better understand dementia, navigate the health system, and access resources they need. To support a large variety of programs, the majority of which focus on those with early-stage dementia and are provided at no charge to individuals or their families, our society must fundraise for approximately $500,000 each year, and Coffee Break is our signature event. Coffee breaks provide an opportunity to invite your coworkers, clients, customers, friends, families, or neighbors to come together to enjoy a cup of coffee or a glass of wine at a break time or another social get-together in exchange for making a donation to support the work of your local Alzheimer's Society. Hosting a coffee break is fun, easy to organize, and a great social opportunity. Our society provides a free kit, while each host supplies the people and the location. The kit includes coffee for the first pot, supplied locally by Barclay and Todd's, promotional signage and literature, as well as a donation box. While many of the Alzheimer coffee breaks in Canada will be held on the National Day, you can choose a date that suits you, since our campaign runs from September to December. Coffee break events are held in homes, workplaces, community centers, schools, church halls, city halls, retail outlets, just about anywhere you can imagine a social gathering, and where coffee or other beverages, food, etc. can be served and a donation collected. Some of the most successful events have been as a result of doing something a little different, whether it's a barbecue, open house, raffle, dress down day, selling coffee cups or forget-me-not decals, or rounding up your bill at the cash register. No coffee break event is too big or too small, and each one makes a difference. Thanks to this council and over 150 hosts, we raised more than $77,000 last year, and this year we hope to reach our goal of $100,000. Organizing or taking part in a coffee breaking event in your community has the potential to raise awareness and encourage discussion about Alzheimer's disease and dementia. It not only makes all of the Society's accomplishments possible, but it ensures that individuals and their families, your loved ones, friends, or neighbors, know that they are not alone in their journey. Consider hosting a coffee break event and make your coffee count. It's a fun and easy way to show your support for the Alzheimer's Society. Anyone can register for a free coffee break kit by calling the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region at 905-687-3914 or visiting the website alzheimerniagara.ca. Thank you for your time this evening and for your consideration in making a donation and supporting the Alzheimer's Society. And I'd like to present you with the coffee break kit.
Thank you. Why don't you come up this way and thank you very much. Really appreciate your presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause for that presentation. Thank you. For a second, if you don't mind, excuse me, there might be some questions from members of council. Questions, comments from members of council? I do want to say thank you very much.
thank
You're
you.
here on a really a volunteer basis as
Correct.
in terms of
Yeah.
working with the foundation.
Exactly.
And the work of the Alzheimer's Society is so important. We know, and I can think of folks that we have in our community that are receiving the excellent care of the Alzheimer's Society. And as council has received this presentation, you've been diligent in coming to council year after year. Unfortunately, that number, in terms of the number of people that are experiencing dementia, keeps increasing. We hope and we know that scientists are working on solutions for that, but until that time, you continue to work to try to make it better for folks with Alzheimer's disease and their families.
Thank you very
We've
much.
hosted this in the past, so I do have a recommended motion that perhaps councilors will consider. Be it resolved, the council receive the information presented by the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara, and staff be directed to make the necessary arrangements to host an Alzheimer coffee break event. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Durley and Councillor King. Any other comments or questions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried unanimously. Thank you
Great.
again for your
Thank you very much for
presentation
your
and
support.
for your patience for this evening. Thank you. Take care. We'll be sure to host that. Another person who's been very patient is here. Harlan Young is here representing folks in that neighborhood of the Pelham Street Storm Construction Project. Please come forward. It's good to see you again.
Mayor Augustine, members of council, town staff, and members of the public. I have 3 pictures that all the councilors can see. I was asked if I wanted to figure that out, but if you have the ability to do that, that would be helpful when I get to that area, Madam Clerk. Yeah, my name is Harlan Young, and I am the chairperson of Carey Chill Condominiums. Carey Chill is an 18-unit townhouse development located at the northeast corner of Hurricane Road and Pelham Street here in Font Hill. I'm here to address the report of the Pelham Street storm construction, revisiting the need dated August the 21st, to be received later this evening for information. I want to thank Council for this opportunity to restate the need that this project proceeds as soon as possible. On December the 6th, 2014, I stood before you with the request that the matter of serious 2014 spring flooding onto Carey Chill property from both Hurricane Road and Pelham Street be addressed in the 2015 capital budget. This was subsequently done. I wanted to show you some of the pictures again from that presentation. The first one is page 43 in your handout, and that is the situation entitled, this one is Hurricane Road Ponding, and it shows Hurricane Road facing east and demonstrates the water coming down at the back there, which is Chestnut Street. It flows west on Hurricane and adds to the ponding. All of this ponding, which you can see is obviously a safety hazard, will drain to the left of the picture onto Carey Chill, which will appear in a subsequent picture. That's the same picture. This shows the water from the same place coming off of Hurricane Road onto the property Carey Chill. This would be the back of the townhouses that face Hurricane. And then there's a third picture. I appreciate you doing this for me, ma'am. Very much so. This river, you'll see a stop sign in the back corner. That is actually the end of Hurricane Road where it meets Pelham Street. The water comes down Pelham Street and largely drains this way and creates that river. And eventually will end up in basements along that property line. While it is true that the Hurricane Road at the intersection with Pelham Street has subsequently been modified, the volume of water has only been reduced. So there's still water coming this way, not nearly as much as in this picture. Additionally, it is believed that we have not had as severe a rainstorm as those experienced in the spring of 2014. We believe future rainstorms of this severity will come again. The need remains. Since December of 2014, we have continued to ask and received updates from town staff as the project expanded and even included a sidewalk along the east side of Pelham Street, which we requested. Over the past 3 years, we watched progress as surveying was done, natural gas services were upgraded, and most recently, the geotechnical investigation was completed. We were finally getting close. We understood that the contract would be issued this past spring. All of these factors gave us confidence that the project was on schedule and would hopefully be completed prior to more severe rainstorms. We appreciate that the project has expanded well beyond the original parameters and that the costs have increased accordingly. However, we again ask Council to include the entire project in the 2018 capital budget. To split the project in two may just move the problem further down the hill. And thank you for the opportunity to address Council this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young, for your presentation. Just for clarity, those photos were from 2014?
Yes, they were,
Okay.
sir.
All right, thank you. Questions from members of council? Councillor Papp?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director, what's the status of this particular project? Just where are we at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the report that we brought forward in August stated that we tendered the project with the new scope.
Okay.
The tenders all came in higher than what was approved in the budget. So we have continued with the utility work and the preparation work and let council know what the adjusted amount is based on these new tenders in hopes that we could submit a capital request through the budget process and have it prioritized to go forward. We could tender early next year. So the ongoing project can continue since it's approved budget and could be phased, or we could have the approved 2018 budget added to it and tender for the whole amount first thing next year with approved capital should it be awarded.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
No, I'm satisfied. So we'll continue on with the process and as part of our considerations for 2018 capital budget and see how it fits in. Hopefully that Mr. Young, through you, Mr. Mayor, will be able to get this underway and get this solved. It's been ongoing, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we have been patient. And all of the owners we've been keeping them up to date.
Right.
And I think that confidence that we've instilled in them has stopped you getting any nuisance calls whenever there has been potential issues. So again, thank you for your time and attention
Okay,
in this
thank you.
matter.
Other questions from members of council? So keep us informed. You've heard the process. I think if there's issues that arise, a storm, et cetera, we do want to hear about it and know, and that will help with council's deliberations as well for the 2018 budget. I need a mover and a seconder for this. Be it resolved, the council receive the information presented by Mr. Harlan Young regarding the Pelham Street Storm Construction Project for information, and that it be forwarded to staff for consideration during the preparation of a recommendation report on this matter. And that's understood that would come to budget. So that's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribiak. Any further discussion? We look forward to seeing how that fits into the 2018 budget. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Young, for your presentation and for your patience as well this evening.
Thank you to you and council.
Thank you. So now we move to, we do not have a report of Regional Councillor Beatty. Regional Council, like sort of school, is just starting up today, so we had meetings today. So now we move to adoption of minutes. It's been moved by Councillor Ribiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Minutes of the special meeting of council of October 21st and of October 28th, 2017, and of the regular council meeting minutes of August 28th, August 21st, and the regular council meeting minutes of August 21st. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Now we move to consent agenda items to be considered in block. Are there any items that members of council would like to lift for separate consideration? There being none, it's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Papp. Be it resolved that the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. Presentation of recommendations arising from the Committee of the Whole for council approval. Be it resolved the council approve the recommendations from the Committee of the Whole meeting of August 21st, 2017 as presented. We also have the minutes of that meeting, and the motion is that we adopt the minutes as printed, circulated, and read for the meeting of August 21st. We have staff reports of routine nature for information or action. 45 Abbott Place fence variation. Be it resolved the council receives the application for fence variance regarding 45 Abbott Place, and the council hereby approves the request by owner Mr. David Homanek to permit a 2-foot extension to the top of the existing fence in the rear of the property known as 45 Abbott Place, Font Hill. Brock University Student UPass Agreement. The resolution, be it resolved the council receive the report regarding the Brock University Student UPass Transit Agreement. The council approve the agreement as presented, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal the agreement. We also have a similar agreement with Niagara College. Be it resolved the council receive the issue summary report Niagara College UPass Transit Agreement, and the council approve the agreement as presented, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and the said agreement. We have information correspondence items. One from and the motion is be it resolved the following correspondence items be received for information from the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services regarding Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. From Yan Morales, a request to consider chicken coops in residential area. And the motion be it resolved the council receive the correspondence from Mr. Morales requesting that the consideration be given for allowing chicken coops in residential areas, and that a copy of the correspondence be forwarded to staff for consideration during the comprehensive zoning bylaw preparation. We have a notice from the Region of Niagara regarding the passing of the development charges bylaw, and we have committee minutes for information, and that's the Pelham Library Board minutes of June 28th, 2017. Are there any questions or comments on any of those reports? Councillor Ribiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly on 952, the letter from Jan Mares talking about chickens in urban areas. I am generally in favor of this. The motion is to put this forward to a discussion within the zoning bylaw. So I take it that the issue is that operating chickens or having chickens within the town doesn't fit within the approved uses for that zoning. I think that's what the issue must be. When we get to that discussion, which hopefully will be soon, because I think we're all waiting for the zoning bylaw. When the issue comes up, we may want to talk about it some more. Having grown up with chickens as a child, I can tell you that they can be a nuisance to many, and so there needs to be some way of dealing with those if that's going to be an issue. But hopefully we can do it, but there are issues we're going to have to look at that time. Smell, noise, because they like to crow in the morning, wandering and pooping on people's lawns, all kinds of things to think about when we get there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I guess we'll look forward to that discussion when that discussion comes. It is part of, I believe, the zoning bylaw, Madam Director.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, that would certainly be something that we would consider as part of the update to the zoning bylaw. We've had some discussions with council on it, and some of those issues have come up.
You mean legal counsel?
With town council.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
In one of our workshops, we talked about, chickens in the backyard in residential neighborhoods versus, out on a 1 acre rural farm lot and those kind of things. So those are all things that we're looking at as we're developing our comprehensive zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Anything further to that, Councilor Ribiak?
Only a question as to when we might expect to get into that discussion further. When might that zoning bylaw appear?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I would hope that we'd probably be back at public sessions in October and November on that, where we'll get community feedback and then coming back to council with the results of all of that, hopefully before the end of this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on chickens? Anyone else on any of the other items? Councillor Papp.
Very quickly, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure who can answer this question. I had a fascinating call from one of our local developers who's constructing out here, and he indicated that the City of Welland has filed an appeal against the Niagara Region's development charges. And the question is that if the appeal is won, then maybe someone can explain to me what happens. Does the bylaw stop? Are we refunded? I couldn't quite answer that question.
Okay, thank
Madam
Ms. Wiens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, development charges, we do collect the regional development charge on their behalf at building permit stage, and then that money is quarterly transferred to the region. So we keep track of all of those charges. There is an appeal filed by the City of Welland. We will continue to collect the charge on behalf of the region. If the charge is reduced as a result of the appeal and any decision coming out of that, then the region will be obligated to refund back to anybody that paid their charges.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Madam Planner, for that clarity. That helps a great deal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Anyone else on development charges? We look forward to that appeal progressing. Anyone else on any of the other items? I do want to underscore one item, and I know there's at least one member of the public here regarding this. Council will recall that we had a conversation at our committee meeting on August 21st about Emmett Street and the storm water concerns there. The resolution that council is about to approve is from committee, which was the committee recommended council to direct staff to advance the capital projects in the 20-year capital forecast for design and construction of Pelham Street reconstruction, College to Pancake, and of Emmett Street, and that staff investigate swale mitigating measures. So if we approve this motion before us, that will then be our approval of that recommendation, and staff will get moving on that process. So I know that, or I understand that a member of the public may want to come forward at our next meeting, council, just to underscore, as Mr. Young did, in another area, this particular issue. So just wanted to let members of the public know what was transpired. I think it was reported in some media that the resolution was that it moved to 2018 for sure, and I don't think that was the resolution. That's not what's exactly here, so we'll look forward to that in part of the budget process as well. Anything on that, Councillor Brown?
On that, that's interesting. I also received some calls about the similar type of conditions coming down Pancake Lane in that area, and I don't know, maybe Councillor Durley got, some of the constituents are asking about the same issue.
Okay.
The flow of water coming down the hill and flooding down that area. So maybe you can, to the director, let us know what's happening in that area as far as remediation.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've been on vacation. It's the first I've heard of flooding complaints on Pancake Lane. So if you could forward those.
Yeah, that'd be
I'll
helpful.
forward those to you. I don't want to discuss it, but I'll give them to you. And
Okay.
copy Councilor Durley.
Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've received many calls too. The situation that I've been made aware of, water coming down the hill.
Right.
Because the driveways are lower, the water comes off the road through their driveways into their garages and into their basements.
That's
And
correct.
That's
That's
part of the
absolutely-
problem. On the downslope coming from Haste going down towards Pelham Street, on the downswing, this is where the problem is.
Okay.
That's it.
So we look forward to perhaps you can forward those to
We
the
will.
director, and then they can come to future committee meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Anything further? Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. We look forward to those actions occurring. Thank you very much. Now we move to reports. I have a report. I'll try and be brief on this. We've already had some great discussion this evening. First, this is sort of a culmination report of what occurred, a lot of what occurred over the summer. So some of this does reach back a little bit. I had the honor of being at an event back in June at Lookout for the Paul Harris Fellowship Dinner. This was put on by the Fonthill Rotary. I have Fonthill District Kinsman, which is incorrect. I apologize, so we'll correct that. But the Rotary Club that was doing this with the Paul Harris Fellow, congratulations to Tim Dropart, Karen Chakowski, and Ann Mantini, who are honored as Paul Harris Fellows because of their service beyond self. So congratulations to those. Pelham Business Association, I had the honor of presenting to the PBA regarding a Pelham update, and I thank the PBA through the years, encouraged for their involvement and encouraged them to continue to be involved in improving town business opportunities. One of the things I went back to was showing pictures of what downtown looked like back in 2007 when the PBA first wrote us a letter and said, fix up our downtown, and then what it looks like now. So it was a very good discussion and great presentation. I had the honor of being in attendance at the Yale Crosley commencement exercises, and a special congratulations to Amanda Keach and Abby Lowen, who received scholarships from the town. There's information here about Canada Day and our 150th for Canada and the 27th annual Pelham Canada Day celebrations. Certainly joined by all members of council about this and involved in the parade, etc. Deeply appreciate the involvement of staff, of volunteers, of donors who are all outlined in this report. Putting this together to make this a huge, huge, wonderful celebration, especially this year in the 150th of our country. Special thanks to Fred Arbor, Reese Evans, Mary Lou Hilliard, Sue Kissel, Bill King, Steve Pellerin, and Lance Weeb, and to the town recreation and culture and wellness staff and the public works staff for all the logistics. Very pleased to attend Lipa Park celebrations for the 50th anniversary. That was in July, and it was a wonderful event, including the ambassador from Slovenia. And I think Councillor Accursi spoke about it in a previous meeting about Pelham Summerfest, and we look forward to that report. But obviously, thank you very much to Summerfest Committee, the town staff, service clubs, and all volunteers that put together an amazing Summerfest this year. Because of their hard work and dedication, this was the biggest Summerfest ever, more than 40,000 people attending the Summerfest celebrations. So congratulations on the success, the greatest success yet. There's some pictures here of this. Certainly appreciate and underscore the work of the committee that's putting this together, including John Wink, Councillor Kersey, Bill Gibson, Candy Ashby, Matthew Leask, and Michelle Stewart, and Sophia Labrachosa and McKenna Belding, EMIAC reps. The committee met really over a year to put this off and put it together, and so congratulations to you. Thank you very much for all the service clubs that were involved and all of the town staff in so many departments that really, really put this together, and the sponsors. So that's all outlined in my report. Thanks again to the 40,000 people that attended the event to make it one of the most significant events in our community. I didn't give a report last time about the Association of Ontario Conference, but along with Councillor Papp, Mr. Ottaway, and Ms. Quinlan, I attended the annual Association of Municipalities Conference in Ottawa. We met with various ministries to advance the interests of the town to the provincial government. We did meet with Catherine McGarry, the Minister of Natural Resources, about increasing the protection of the Fonthill Kame, and we asked to work together with staff to add more of the Fonthill Kame to the protections offered by the Niagara Escarpment Plan. We also met with Ms. Vernile, the MPP and Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Transportation, and with Grant Crack, the MPP and Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, about funding for municipalities. We encourage the government to fund projects that create wealth and prosperity in a community. We spoke not only about projects like downtown revitalization, but also about community and cultural facilities like the community center and libraries. We also listened to the three-party leaders discuss various issues. They did dismiss, all three of them, the idea that AMO had floated regarding a 1% increase on the HST to help fund municipal infrastructure. They said they'd be open to discussions with municipalities and with the association on funding, additional funding for municipal infrastructure, but they did turn down that particular idea. Two other quick updates. Very pleased to participate in the Slider Fest, which was put on by the Lions Club in the Clager Park. Congratulations and thanks to the Lions for hosting the first-time event. It was a sold-out event and featured head-to-head slider competition between 5 Pelham restaurants. It was a great event and fabulous for the community, and again, keeping that small-town feel of our community. So kudos to the Fawn Hill Lions for that event. And Councillor Papp and Durley and I were delighted to attend the second Love My Hood event in the town. It was in Timber Creek neighborhood. It was a beautiful day, and the neighbors came out, closing off the streets. Town staff worked with them, putting this together. Just a really, really great event where people got to know their neighbors, got to know who else was, the children that were there were playing together. There's music, there's food. Really, the vision of the Love My Hood, which was presented to this council in January, really came about as a result of that. So the other one was Highland, and then there's been another on Abbott. I wasn't able to meet the one on Abbott this weekend, but this appears to be picking up steam, which is great. It helps with our small town feel in our community and neighbors helping neighbors. So congratulations to those that organized that, and we'd encourage others to organize as well. That is my report, and unless there's any other comments or questions from members of council, I do have a motion moved by Councillor Junkin, seconded by Councillor Kersey. Be it resolved that Mayor Augustine's report dated September 5th, 2017 be received for information as corrected, that it was the Rotary Club. Councillor Papp.
Very quickly, in response to our presentations at AMO, normally we've been going there for years, and just very quickly, what we heard was a lot of the municipalities go in there and they ask for money. And I was very impressed that the ministry staff and the political staff were very impressed by what we do. Is our presentations are very informative, they're very articulate, and they are being used by ministry staff in many other venues. The one on creating wealth was very well received. They had not received anything like that. So talk about creative and innovative. I was deeply impressed, and so were when we walked out and said, you guys are right on stream and you're ahead of the game, and that was nice to hear. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Papp. Any others? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You alluded to the Abbott Street
Yes.
Love My Hood. I attended on Sunday.
Great. Let's hear about it.
It was a great turnout, well organized. Folks in the neighborhood, a lot of them are newbies to our community in the last year and a half. Many from, I spoke to people from Toronto, Georgetown, what have you. Absolutely in love with the community, love the community events that are held, such as Summerfest and Canada Day and Love My Hood, and they want that Love My Hood thing to continue on an annualized basis. So I encourage our staff to continue the outreach. It's a great concept.
That's great. Thank you very much for the update. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Thank you, colleagues. So I'm going to call the question on my report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries with the amendment. Thank you. Now we have some staff reports. The first has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved, the Council receive the Public Works Report, Regional Transportation Master Plan for information, and staff be directed to forward a copy of the report, including comments from the town relating to Regional Transportation Master Plan to the region before the comment deadline, which I think is on the 11th or 12th. Questions or comments? Councillor Papp?
Fully concur, Mr. Mayor, with this report. There are significant suggestions in here that will impact on the whole development of the town. And if you look through it carefully, you'll see that these are areas. I'm a little disappointed that some of the areas weren't noted in the transportation plan. And I believe you and I will be at a transportation steering committee, and I'll make a note of bringing it up to say that you should emphasize what we've been able to do on a small local transportation basis. And I hope that our regional colleagues will pay attention to that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put forward a small amendment to our resolution. I think we need to be a little stronger worded, that we receive it for information, but that we support and endorse all of the comments put forward within the report.
Okay.
We put forward many of these comments when the draft plan came forward, and we reviewed it, and we're quite appalled by the fact that our little Pelham transit was completely ignored in the plan, and they continued to ignore us in the plan. So I think we need to put it forward, be a little bit stronger in our comments. So
Thank you. We'll second that amendment.
Concur.
And the council support and endorse the, how are we going to say this, the recommendations contained therein?
Yeah, the staff recommendations.
Okay. Anyone else to the amendment? There be none. I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? The amendment carries. Thank you. Others to the report as amended, or the recommendation as amended? I do want to underscore and thank staff for putting this together. I know a number of staff worked on this. I did raise a number of these points through the process and made motions, and
Well, let's
they
keep-
were
keep it.
they were not added. And when I raised it when it was presented to regional council, I said we got to include these things. Oh, well, that's something that you can do in the public phase. So it's important for us to include these comments in that. I would may also recommend to council that we not only forward it to the region, but also specifically to Councillor Beatty and to the Transportation Strategy Steering Committee. Because Councillor Beatty, as I think he told us at our meeting on the 21st, does also sit on the Transit Master Plan group, the group that's working on transit for the region. So he needs to have these in his back pocket as well. So can I take that as a friendly amendment, Councillor Durley and Councillor Ribiak, that it be circulated to Councillor Beatty and to the Regional Transportation Strategy Steering Committee, so Councillor Papp and I can speak about it. Okay? Anything further? Going to call the question on the amended motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries as amended. Thank you very much. Appreciate the work of staff. The next item has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the council receive the Community Planning and Development Services report regarding the request for relief for development charges for 1145 Pelham Street, and the council supports the reduction in the development charges of $47,646.49 for 1145 Pelham Street, and that the applicant be advised of council's decision. Questions or comments? Anything from the mover and seconder first? Okay, Councillor Ribiak and then Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect both to the developer in question here and the fine developments that he has provided to us locally and regionally, I'm personally am not in favor of offering this reduction. There was a 5-year window between the time of the demolition permit and the application for a building permit. 5-year period is in order to have offered a reduction, the $50,000 reduction thereabouts that's in question here. That's a pretty generous amount of time. For an experienced and knowledgeable developer, I would have expected that would have been more than enough time to take advantage of that opportunity. So where we are now is a situation in which a developer who is not qualified for a reduction is asking for one. I don't know how we would respond to other developers asking for a reduction who are equally unqualified if we provided this one. So I'm not
Unqualified in a time.
unqualified in terms of the opportunities afforded by the process itself. I mean, not everybody has to start the development with a demolition permit, so presumably this particular opportunity isn't available to everybody. They start without one. So I would suggest that for myself that we've got a developer who had the opportunity for whatever reason, presumably within his control, missed out on it. Now is not qualified within these terms to receive it, just as many other developers are not. I don't know how we can make this movement for one, and then not for others as it comes forward, and they will come forward, obviously. So I will not support this.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to hear from staff, or are we going to turn to another?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You want to hear from staff?
I would like to hear from
Okay.
staff.
Ms. Weens, can you fill us in a little bit?
Mr. Mayor, through you, as you are aware, it was in January 2016 that council did grant site plan approval for the proposed redevelopment, which considers a 3-story mixed-use building comprised of 8 commercial units and I believe 20 apartment units. So, you know, the developer was proceeding quite along, was up until that point, certainly in terms of getting his plans in and being able to satisfy the requirements for that 5-year time frame. I can't speak what happened between January and August when he did apply for the building permit. That is some 7-8 months. Usually, developers are pretty ready to apply for building permits fairly shortly after getting site plan approval. But that's the situation that we're in, and so the developer has requested that council consider this request, and we've prepared this report for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you. Just the amount, is this amount from the town, or is this the amount from the region, or is this both amounts?
This amount is only the town portion, and it's only for the credit for the floor area of what was there. We cannot make the same decision on behalf of the region. He would have to seek that directly from the region.
Okay, so one more thing before we proceed. Can we hear a little bit about this 5-year time frame and how that's calculated?
So the development charges bylaw does provide for this credit if you demolish a building and you apply for building permits within 5 years of the issuance of the demolition permit, you can get a credit on the development charge for, on a commercial building, it's equal to whatever the floor size would be if it was the building was being replaced. If it's a single detached dwelling or a dwelling unit, it's a credit on a per unit basis versus a floor area basis. And so that's the way the development charges bylaw is structured, recognizing that when a building is demolished and it's replaced, the same footprint is generating the same amount of area that a charge would have been attributed to. So that's the rationale for it, and 5 years is pretty standard across, certainly across Niagara in terms of the time frame that credit is available.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a couple of questions. Madam Director, does the Provincial Act, Development Charges Act, speak to this sort of matter, or is it left up to the local municipality to establish that within its own bylaw?
The Development Charges Act does provide for the provision of applying credits, and certainly it is up to each local municipality if they would do that. My experience has been the majority of municipalities across the province do. Certainly, I believe all the ones here in Niagara do offer that credit when a building is demolished, but it is up to each municipality.
Madam Director, do we know, it says in the report that the proponent has, or the applicant has looked to the region for some relief as well. Do we know what has been decided there?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I do not know what the decision of the region is with regards to that. With the relief that the developer is seeking from the region is relief from a brownfield component, which is different than this, but the region does have development charge credits that are available where brownfield sites are being redeveloped, and so that's the project that he's seeking relief from.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the development charge bylaw was a public process, and we're now contemplating varying that bylaw for this one particular individual, two-part question. A, does it require a public process, or is this sufficient? And B, does it create a precedent going forward, or are we assessing them on one of as we go forward?
Mr. Mayor, through you, certainly as we indicated to the applicant, staff does not have the authority to make a decision that's contrary to the development charges bylaw. Council can, and in this case, either waive that, that requirement. I don't believe further public meeting is required. It is a council decision to make. Will this be precedent? It could very well be.
Thanks. Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the word credit has been used to describe this, and credit to me implies payback of some sort at some point in time. Is there a payback on such a matter as giving this credit?
Mr. Mayor, through you, there would not be a payback, no. This would be crediting what the developer would be required to pay development charges and reducing the development charge amount by the 47,000.
So in fact, it becomes a grant rather than a loan type thing.
Yes.
A gift, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Junkin.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. At first, I thought that this was, the staff recommendation was was a good thing. We have a developer. He did demolish a building. He did miss his deadline by 35 days. And then when the director informs us that we could be setting a precedent, well, then I got to concur with my fellow colleague, Councilor Rybiak, that he did have 5 years. And if 5 years isn't enough, then is it 6 years or is it 7 years or what have you? So now I'm kind of in a quandary. We have a guy here who wants to proceed with a project, but he had every opportunity to fall within the deadlines. So I think I'd have to say, I'm sorry, you missed the deadline by 35 days.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Papp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Planning, was there any extenuating circumstances that were presented by the applicant with respect to the 35-day overage?
Mr. Mayor, through you, no, there were not.
No. And, go ahead.
Councillor?
Just quick, I can't remember, and I don't know, I looked to my colleague, Councilor, I don't know if we've ever exempted or given reduction in development charges over the years at the council. I can't remember that being done, unless I'm wrong.
Mr. Mayor, through you, with respect to this particular clause in terms of when there's been a demolition, I don't believe that there's ever been that case.
I didn't think so. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Councillor Papp, I wonder if you might take
By
the
all
chair.
means. By all means.
And if you don't mind.
No problem. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I've looked at this, and I want to inform council about that I think there is some precedent, maybe not in the town, but at the region. And the region may not be the greatest spot to look for precedent on something, but I think it's a compelling case. So what we have here is a situation, as some councillors projected, or you could say, had the applicant left that building up another 35 days and to be an eyesore in our community longer, then he would have met the deadline. He could have left it up until he applied for the building permit, and he would have met the deadline. But instead, he cleaned up his site. In terms of the question of extenuating circumstances, I think they're outlined here. Hired to supervise and manage the cleanup of oil tanks and prepare a record of site conditions. So this is a bit more of a complicated site, in my opinion, than other sites that are out there. As normal demolition, you take a building down, it's a lot more complicated when you're dealing with what I would argue is a brownfield site. The permit itself, we heard, it's not actually dollars leaving the town, it's dollars that we may not get. I don't know, Mr. Chair, if Ms. Weens knows off the top of her head what the permit would be, the development charges in total would be
Madam Director?
for this.
The development charges in total, including the town, the regional, and the school board development charges, would be in the order of $442,160 and some cents.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, I think, and although the applicant is here, when we approved the plan back in January of 2016, I presume in the plan, he had thought that he would get these fees back. And that's part of the business plan that he put forward. So my worry is if council does not approve this and give that extra window of 35 days, that this development may not occur. Whereas we know that the applicant is ready to develop. If this council approves it, I think the applicant would also have to go to the region as was outlined. But I think in the case of this, and the reason the region gave an extra window, and I think they said up to 7 years, and the region actually considered in its bylaw an additional time period, up to 7 years for brownfield sites, and I think that was approved in the region's development charge bylaw, is because these types of sites are more complex, because they do take time, especially in the planning regime that we're now in. When you're talking about site record conditions and there's a little bit of oil there, well, there's a lot of oil in 2 storage tanks. So, Mr. Chair, I would just ask council to think hard about this. It may set a precedent that brownfield sites may not be developed in town, or that it would be more difficult to develop the site. So I left the chair because I wanted to ask council to at least consider those elements. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mayor, any further comments? Councilor Ribbiak and then Councilor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the comments that the mayor has made. We have granted extensions to deadlines. They've been asked for in advance. That's how we know that people are working at it and are encountering issues and are trying to get it done. These 35 days elapsed, what was it, a year ago already, as I understand the report. So this is the first we're hearing of it. So I'm just a little less inclined to be sympathetic on that basis.
To that issue, Madam Director, if you can, is it 35 days past?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it
Verify for us?
it would have been last year in 2016. The applicant applied for the building permit in August of 2016.
Of last year.
Yes.
Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Mr.
Councilor
Chair.
King.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the director, I just would like to clarify in the applicant's correspondence to the town, which was dated July the 17th, he had stated that he was going to begin construction in August of 2017. It's now September, so I'm just wondering whether, in fact, any construction started in August.
Madam Director.
Mr. Chair, through you, there's no construction has started. We have, the building permit is ready to be issued. He needs to pay his development charge fees before he can get his building permit. And so that's what has halted, because he's seeking this relief on the town's development charges as well as the regional development charges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Madam Director, do we know whether the applicant intends, if we were to approve this, to move forward with the building permit immediately, regardless of what the outcome is at the region, or is it contingent upon the region giving him approval as well?
Mr. Chair, through you, I hesitate to comment on behalf of the applicant, and I'm not aware of all the discussions that have been going on with the region and where those are at, so I can't say for certain. I just don't know.
Thank you. Secondary?
Mr. Chair, the applicant is here. Perhaps we could waive procedure and allow him to come up and answer some of these questions that may weigh on our decision.
Okay, before that, I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Durley. You had a question?
Yeah, just a comment on a letter written by the applicant dated July the 31st. A statement in there says, I subsequently put on hold as the municipal and regional charges made the project unfeasible. So if we were to allow the credit and the region doesn't, does that, again, here's a question that begs an answer. If in fact we allow this and the region says no, is he still not going to do it? That's, there's a lot of ifs in the air here, and I've got a few poems about if.
Madam Director, that's a good question. If we support this and the region does not, what happens?
Don't know.
We don't know.
If we support that, he would be subject to, and the region does not, he would be subject to having to pay the full regional development
To the
charge.
regional charges.
Yes, if he's going to be proceeding
Right.
with his development.
So notwithstanding whether if we approve, he still's got to pay the region.
Yes.
If in fact they change. Okay. I have had a request from council, and if we suspend rules, do you want to have the applicant come forward and answer some questions? I would need full consent. 2/3, pardon me. So those in favor of having the applicants come forward and talk to us about the application? All in favor? Okay. Mr. Hassani, please step forward.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to explain to you my project.
So we need to know what has happened here.
Well, the only thing that's happened before I start to get the building permit, we have to clean the property. The property, it was garage and all of contamination there. So we finished it, we dig it about 8 feet deep, and we took all the dirt out. We begged everybody to take this contaminated dirt. It takes me a while until I find a place in Thorold. Then they accepted, and we hauling all the things, and there is a tank there as well. So we start demolishing everything. It takes time. Now, when we finish that, we start the building permit, then we have to, there is a water in that deep, so we have to wait, and we call the AA environment to see from where that water is coming. So they dig another hole, and we took that dirt contaminated as well, and they put 4 pipes there. That's the reason it takes time. That takes about 2.5 months to get that result and send it to the lab, and after that it comes back again. That is not an easy job to do it. Now we finished everything. When we apply for the building permit, I know that's in August or whatever, yes, we are behind at 35 days. We got 5 years to finish like when we demolished that building, we got 5 years. 5 years, like we passed it by 35 days. I don't think that's the reason not to extend it. It's your job here, and I appreciate that. Another 2 months or 1 month. I went to the region, and the region, exactly they said, if the council and the town of Pelham, they support this, and they give you extension, bring the letter, we're gonna look at it, and they said, we're going to go to the council as well, in the region. But it seems to be they're going to support that.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions to Mr. Hassani? Councillor Durley, and then...
Thank you,
And then Councillor
Mr.
King.
Chair. Through you, your letter states that you need both. Now, if we say yes and the region says no, are you still going to go ahead with building it?
We need what?
You need both You're looking for
I have to
credits
get-
for both. What I'm asking you is,
Yeah.
if we say yes and the region says no, are you still going to build it, or are you going to say no?
To my knowledge, I don't think the region is going to say no.
I didn't ask that question. I
Yeah.
said, what if they say no?
Yeah, in this case, yes, I have to start,
Okay.
because I have no choice. Other than that, I will fence it and sell it.
Okay.
Because this amount, like it's 499, I will reach to the second floor with this amount. Money to pay it, like, that's too much money for me. I can't afford.
Secondary, go
Our,
ahead.
our amount is going to be 46,000, not 400 and something. So what I'm saying is, if we grant the 46 and you still have to get the other 400,000, are you still going to build it, or are you going to put a fence around it and sell it?
There is no 400,000 from the region.
No, all totaled.
All total.
All total. We're going to, if we grant you the credit, it's 47,000.
Yeah.
There still is an outstanding amount there, which is far exceeds the 47,000. Now, you're saying that
If they didn't pass it, I will start.
you will sell it.
Right?
You will sell it, you won't build on it.
I will, no. If the region, which is I doubt it, if they stop me, like I have to pay them, not 400,
You made a statement of something about $400,000.
no, total, 400.
Total, right. So
For
we're-
you and for the town and the region.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to
But if
grant
we-
you
if we-
47,000. There's still, if you said it's over 400,000, it's still around over $300,000 that you're going to have to pay. 47 is a small drop in the bucket.
Okay, so.
No.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Durley. So I think we need to be clear on that, but anyhow, it's, what is it, 210, isn't it? So the bottom line is this, and just to help, and if we grant you the exemption, in fact, you still have to deal with the region. There's no guarantee on that.
No.
And if they decide no, you still have to make payments, and I think Mr. Mayor's right, it's 210,000. If they say no, you got to pay the DC to the region, will you still proceed with the project?
I will.
All right. Councillor King, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, when was the demolition completed? And you mentioned an irrigation issue that had to also be addressed. When were those two projects completed?
The demolition, I believe it's done on August 2014. And then we have to wait to get the lab here, and the lab, he need a big, I got the pictures. They need a big hole, and they put those 4 pipes to see if the water rise there they check the water if the water is contaminated. So we have little bit of contamination. We have to clean that.
And when was that completed?
That same year, I believe.
In 2014?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, any other further questions to the applicant? All right, thank you, Mr. Hassani, we're clear,
Thank you.
and we'll now proceed. All right, so before us is the question of, I'm sorry, I don't have the, right, there it is. That it's moved, do you mind, Mr. Mayor?
No, please,
Moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the council received the Community and Planning and Development Services report regarding the request for relief for development charges for 1145 Pelham Street, and then council supports the reduction in the development charge, the town's development charge of $47,646.49 for 1145 Pelham Street, and the applicant be so advised of council's decision. Any further debate? Any comment? All in, Councillor Junkin?
In spite of what I said before, and after hearing this gentleman's tribulations with the property, I've changed my mind and I will support the staff recommendation. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Councillor Junkin. Any other? All in favor of the reduction? Opposed? Carried.
Good.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you want to sign that?
No, you can sign it.
Oh. Okay.
Thank you. Now we move to the next item, which was added to make it come earlier. Thank you, and thanks, Councilor Papp, for filling in.
You're very welcome.
This is from committee. It was agenda item 4.5.1 at committee, and now it's 11.2.3. So it has been moved by Councilor Durley, seconded by Councilor Accursi. Be it resolved, the council received the Public Works Report Hurricane Road Traffic Calming for information. Let's hear a little bit more about the report. I'm going to put the director a little bit on notice here. You're recommending a number of things to look at, is that correct? Maybe you can fill us in, and especially since there's residents here.
Mr. Mayor, we are, a report was requested to come back today. We don't have all the final answers. We've been getting quotes and doing measurements and trying to figure out what the best solution is here. And as you can see in the report, there's a few elements all at play here. So we're trying to sort through them and make sure we come up with the best recommendation. But this is where we are now. All of these recommendations would come forward as through the budget process for capital budget for 2018. So I think it's important to note that none of these things are coming in at amounts that we could afford to absorb into our budget in 2017. But that said, the speeding issue, one of the options that we've zeroed in on are these speed cushions, and they repeat every 100 to 150 meters because it's such a long stretch, and the speeding was confirmed to be in the entire stretch. So we're considering those and getting some pricing issues and talking to municipalities that have already installed them and getting feedback from them. The pedestrian crossing concern was raised at the corner of Hurricane and Station because the sidewalks are opposing and people have to cross on the diagonal. So long-term, we're considering putting sidewalks into the 20-year capital forecast to install sidewalks to continue that continuity. But short-term, we could put landings on the corners that don't have landings now, so they don't have to cross on the diagonal. That said, we threw the photo in there to show you we've got utilities and catch basins, storm infrastructure there. That is a conflict with putting the landing there. So we're working with how that would work, trying to avoid having to go to curb in the area and not in the rest. Trying to keep it so the neighborhood still looks pretty. And then finally, the stop sign, or not finally, the stop sign request is a little trickier. We can confirm it would be an unwarranted all-way stop. So the volumes, the sight lines, and the other regular triggers for a stop sign request aren't met. There is no issue with having to declare who has the right-of-way, but the stop sign is really being requested as part of the traffic calming speeding concern. And so we acknowledge that and are trying to find an alternate way of calming traffic at that intersection. And we found some innovative, less expensive, semi-permanent measures that could be made permanent if they're successful as well. Again, through the budget process, we would bring those forward. And the final point is about the volume. And because this was flagged last year as a concern that could come forward, we weren't able to move forward with the traffic study through the budget process, but we might want to consider that again this year. But right now, volume is not being investigated at this time as a result of growth.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you going through that for council. Questions or comments from members of council? Councilor Rybak?
Thank you. Those cushions, would they be at crossing locations as well, pedestrian crossing locations? Could they double as pedestrian crossing locations?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they can, and it was one of the considerations that the manager of engineering put forward. Our concern is about accessibility. So if we go to a raised hump for a wheelchair crossing and you're having to, the beauty of the cushions is the EMS, the ability for EMS to get through. So it would be an accessibility challenge.
I see that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Papp?
So if I can summarize through, Mr. Mayor, to the director, we really don't have any definitive types of recommendations ready for tonight. Is that fair to say? We're not ready to make,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we could get your support on where we're going in terms of the speed cushions and the landings, but these are all really recommendations that will go through the budget process for capital request.
so what we're hearing, so the residents understand as well, that any concrete recommendations couldn't possibly be implemented until next year.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, unless, we'll talk more about, yeah, go ahead.
That's the process that we were following, that we would bring all these requests to go through the capital process for review, prioritization and review. Should council want to move along something sooner, it would be a variance. However, I'm not sure the timing, we would gain anything with the timing anyways, being that we're in September now. We might be able to get it all done with the capital.
Can I just, so at the minimum, we're looking 8 months, 6-8 months. If we approve certain types of, like I say, common procedures. And then I'm trying to think through what could we do on the interim. I don't know if you're on the same page, like what could we do, other than I'm speaking out loud, is that, you know, get, I guess, more police enforcement. I don't know if there has been, through you, Mr. Mayor, has there been more? I know we did that on Foss Road, Councilor Durley and I remember we did that way back. And it was interesting when the police set up on Foss Road that day, shortly after that, all the speeding stopped. But that's a different type of road, but I'll leave Mr. Mayor.
I did speak to Officer Brown last week about it. He was patrolling, I saw him in a number of locations actually last week patrolling. And he did say that he has been going out to Hurricane now that they're much more aware of this being an issue for Hurricane residents. Ms. Clemencio, the councilor's question is there something that you might propose? What you're proposing is very comprehensive and saying, okay, we're going to do this, consider as part of the budget. Is there something that you can come back at a future meeting and say, you know what, we recommend some cushions this year, or we recommend this year, or whatever it is that you could recommend on the short term, and then in the long, and because they're not that expensive, and then in the longer term, council may want to look at capital items. I think that's what.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm looking at.
Is there a way to phase this, Madam Director?
Lockstep.
The cushions that we would propose to buy are, we call them semi-permanent, that you lag them into the asphalt, but what we're thinking long-term is that we would do that, say, for a year or two. If the pilot is a success, we could replace those with permanent asphalt cushions and then continue to use those as pilot measures as more streets come forward with this concern. Unfortunately, this street would be the first one. We don't have those cushions now to purchase. There are some more temporary versions out there, but we don't currently have any approved capital in 2017. They're not expensive, but they're certainly not something that we can pick up for less than $5,000-$10,000 at least, plus the installation. So that's why we put it forward as a more permanent thing.
No, I don't want to, I just, if I may share through you, Mr. Mayor, I was in a community where I drove through with those cushions. They were effective, but it was a little bit a shorter lane, not a shorter street, but it seemed to work. On a permanent basis, I'm still, no question, what happens on A Street works, those permanent speed. And as far as the traffic study, you got to do that. I'm definitely not an engineer, but the traffic has increased. It's a bonus because we've had more traffic coming into the town, but they are sidetracking off onto Hurricane Road. There's no question about that. So I don't know what to say. I'm kind of looking for if there's some interim measures. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. report is very comprehensive, it needs a little more work. So what I would recommend that not only do we receive this for information, that we direct staff to explore further and come back with a solid recommendation, which we can certainly deal with perhaps in conjunction with budget talks for 2018, or something more quickly, but at least for the 2018, and leave it to staff to go in. You've done a lot of work on here. It's a lot of good work. Just come up with what you feel is the best suggestion for us and let us consider it.
Okay, so receive it and forward it to staff to explore further options.
The best option.
The best option, and come and present it to council, even if it's in advance of the budget or as
Yes,
part of the
exactly,
budget?
is whenever it comes through, and if in fact it's not feasible to do it with 2017, then we can look at it for 2018, but certainly keep the pavement on the, or tires on the pavement.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that, Councillor Papp?
Yep.
Thank you. Any others? Discussion to that? I'm going to call the question on that amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? The amendment carries. Anything further to the motion as amended? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries as amended. So we're going to keep the ball rolling, as Councillor Durley stated, and continue to work on this. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. Been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do not read it first, second, third time, do pass the same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Bylaw 3913, being a bylaw to appoint a treasurer, director of corporate services for the corporation of the Town of Pelham, and to repeal and replace bylaw 3888.
It is 2017.
Oh,
That was your
2017.
interim.
Well, that was the interim bylaw. Thank you. Bylaw 3914, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter in an agreement with Brock University Student Union, regulating the use and outlining the service levels for the student UPass privileges for the Town of Pelham Transit Services for the period of September 1st, 2017 to April 30th, 2018. Bylaw 3915, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter an agreement with Niagara College Student Administrative Council, regulating the use and outlining the service levels for the student UPass privileges for the Town of Pelham Transit Service for the period of September 1st, 2017 to April 30th, 2018. And bylaw 3916, being a bylaw to accept a 1-foot reserve pursuant to the subdivision agreement with the Town of Pelham and South Pelham Developments Limited for Font Hill Homesteads subdivision. Questions, comments? Councillor Papp?
I know it's been said previous week, but I want to take this opportunity through you, Mr. Mayor, is to congratulate Teresa on your appointment as treasurer with the Town of Pelham. We are extremely ecstatic to have the level of knowledge, expertise, history behind to help us work through this very exciting period, and we look forward to working with you as our head of our finances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to, I was going to say something as well. Thank you very much for serving in your interim capacity up to this point. We've been extremely impressed with your performance, and you've really gelled as part of the team and helped bring the town along. You were serving as the interim person, but you really never treated it as an interim position. You really took it, grabbed hold of it and provided the advice that we needed, and we look forward to continue to provide that advice. You talked about improving services. You listened to staff. You worked together with staff, a really calming effect on staff. So kudos to you, and we look forward to you now serving, once this bylaw is approved, in a more permanent capacity for the town. But we appreciate your service up to now and look forward to many years of service for us. Thank you. Unless there's any others, I'm going to call the question on the bylaws. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. It's been been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey. Be it resolved, the following bylaws be read a first, second, third time and passed. Bylaw 3918 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 5th day of September 2017. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp. Be it resolved, this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for Monday, September 18th, 2017. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break before we start committee. Thank you.
Is that right?
Yeah,